Hey friends, so in this video I'm just going to show you how I start and finish my back stitches using just one strand of cross stitch. I have videos already on YouTube showing you how to use 2 strands of cross stitch if you want to check that out as well. So first of all, this is my usual length of thread for cross stitching, but it's too long. So I'm going to cut it in half first. This is too long for me to stitch with when I'm using just one strand. It will just get in my way. I like shorter lengths of thread usually when I'm stitching. I just find they knot less and tangle less. So I'm just going to thread it here. I'm using, what colour is this? I think it's C600. It's the glitter thread, or the Etoulee thread from DMC. Yep, it's C600. And I have this little lotus flower pattern I'm stitching. This is one of mine. I don't think it's on Etsy yet, but I will put it up when it's finished on my Etsy store. That's over at Hannah Handmakes shop. So usually for one strand of backstitch, what you can do is, this is just random, by the way. This pattern doesn't have backstitching on. I'm just using it to show you. So usually you can just come under some stitches to start. And then you can pull it through and just leave a little bit sticking out here. And then you can hold this and start your back stitching. Now, sometimes I don't like to do that though. What I like to do is just for this, like a little extra security, I guess, just to make sure that isn't going to come out, is I will come under the last little stitch at the back. Of course, if your back stitches aren't near any stitching that you've already done at the front, so you don't have this at the back, you will have to just hold on to that thread. But what I like to do is come under that one stitch here and leave a little loop and go into the loop. I go through twice, so I go through once and then twice, and because it's just one strand, this isn't going to be a huge knot. If you just pull like that, you've secured your thread. You see I'm pulling it and it's not going to come out. Then you don't have to worry about holding on at the back here, and that is definitely secure, and the knot is small enough that it's not going to cause any bumps on the back of your stitching. And then you just start your back stitching as you usually would. So I do find with one strand I can kind of jump more squares. So usually I would only jump 3 tops before coming back into a hole. But I find with one strand you can kind of jump a couple more because the line is nice and straight. So let me show you like an even bigger jump. So if I pull, you see it stays nice and taut. Whereas with 2 strands, you kind of have to come in a bit more on yourself. So you just do your back stitching. Obviously I'm just random stitching here. This is not part of the pattern. So you might have some here. And you're just following your pattern, going along the lines. But again, like if you're not comfortable doing big jumps, just do smaller jumps. It depends on what you're stitching. Let me show you some smaller ones. I do find with a one strand, you get a neater line and you can get more detail in, you know? I have backstitched with 2 strands, basically my whole cross stitching journey, but recently I just do prefer one strand, just for the extra detailing. Sometimes I still use 2 strands though, but can you see how that line, obviously you can really see where you're coming in, but obviously on this line where I've jumped, it's easier to catch underneath. So you kind of have to balance like what you're going to be doing with your project, where it's going to be displayed. If no one's going to be touching it, jumping is fine. If you know it's going to be handled or a lot of people will be touching it, you know, it might be better for you to jump back in on yourself just to make sure that is a nice tight line down here rather than the looser version up top. So, but like I said, I do find you can jump more squares with one strand than 2 strands, which is a benefit. And then to tie off, I just do exactly the same as I did to start. So with one strand, you're not going to get much showing through where you're jumping. Can you see here? You can see it. But again, this depends on how you're finishing. If you're backing your hoop or you're framing it and putting it on a wall, it doesn't matter too much about the jumps, but I'll show you 2 ways you can finish. So one way is you could come under here just under one little stitch like so, and then come under again to make that loop, and you're finishing it right along the back stitch. So I'm going to go through the loop, through again, and pull, and then you don't have to worry about jumping over your stitches where there might not be any hiding it, so you get that line showing through. Or if you're not bothered about jumping and you don't mind the line crisscrossing over, you could just find some cross stitches, come under a few, and you can leave it there, you know, that kind of will hold it. But again, because it is just one strand, it's a bit more easier to pull back out. So I do again like to just loop it, and you can just go through once if you want to. Just going through your loop once is fine too. That will cause a little bit of a knot, like that isn't coming out now. So that's all up to you. Lots of different options there for you, just depending on how you're finishing, what you're doing with your piece, and like just how it's going to be finished really, whether it's going to hang on the wall, whether it's going to be, you know, have light behind it. If it's on a window with the light shining through, you don't want to jump and have your lines at the back of thread showing through. And then again, just double checking your lines, whether you want to jump much or whether you prefer to come in every few squares. But I hope that helps you start and finish with the one strand though, as I know that's where most of you struggle, so I hope that helps. And if there's any more tutorials that you want from me, just let me know.